Well, welcome, everybody. Let me just get the recording going here. There we go. I'm really excited about what we're doing today. So many people who are in the helping professions, particularly energy workers, healers, are intimidated about going to the next level. And what I mean by the next level is not only doing one-to-one work, which is wonderful to do, but being able to work with groups. When you work with groups, you can help more people. You can, there's just all kinds of advantages that Anne will be talking about. So I'm really excited to have my friend Anne here, who's an expert on helping heart-centered healers, therapists, really get their work out in the world. And in particular, what she's focusing on today is getting over that hump for a lot of you and working with groups. And for those of you that already work on groups, I think you'll also find there'll be some really valuable tips about that, because I've been working with groups, as you know, for many, many years, and I'm going to be taking my notes. So, hi, Anne. I'm really thrilled you're with us today.
It's great to be here. I'm excited. I always have fun talking with you.
So, Anne and I have been collaborating more and more. And
whenever we get on Zoom, just like the two of us to talk, and it like an hour goes by easily because we just.
Absolutely. And
we have a lot of fun together.
And so I think it'd be helpful for Anne. I always like the term your backstory that they use for superheroes. So maybe you can give a little bit of your backstory and how it is you've gotten to this point where you're teaching people about how to work with groups.
Sure. So I've been involved in, knowledgeable about learning, studying, whatever, in the sort of what I would now call energy healing world. I wouldn't have called it that 30 years ago,
right.
But it was that. But, going back to the mid 80s, learning different forms of sort of, again, what I now call energetic healing. I lived on Maui down this dirt road, no electricity, like a commune. I mean, I did the super woo woo. If you want to know woo woo, Maui in the 80s. Right. And so I've always been interested in, a spiritual approach to things, to a more natural, energetic approach to things. I did a lot of different things. I was a massage therapist for years. I was a colon hydrotherapist for a little while. Something I think I ever told you about.
No, I just
as director of a wellness center. And I think I've always had a little bit of an entrepreneur, or somewhat of an entrepreneurial streak, which, by the way, is not true for most people that would identify themselves as healers. There's some, but most really are not naturally entrepreneurial, right?
No, I wasn't.
They're really not. And I think that's a real disconnect, getting a little away from my story, but because you feel like you're supposed to be, or you have to be, or you have to turn into, to do what you want to do, this work that you love to do, and to do it for a living, you have to you start to feel like you have to twist yourself into some other kind of person, right? That entrepreneurial person. So one of the main things I like to tell healers in particular is that that's not true. You don't have to become an entrepreneur and that sort of, kind of being and mindset in order to create a successful healing practice. You want to build a 7-figure business, then yes, you're going to have to become more entrepreneurial. But to have a busy healing practice and be able to support yourself and all of that, you don't. And so first, sigh of relief, maybe for some people, right? There is a way for that. And that's really what I teach. Right? However, for me, I am one of I would estimate 10 to 15% of healers who is kind of entrepreneurial. You are as well, right?
I've become it. I don't.
Yeah.
Didn't.
I did become it too, but I was somewhat interested. So, I tried different things. Like I said, I was a massage therapist. I had to get clients and all that. But along the way, one of the things that I noticed was, even when I, created some level of success and fairly busy practice, and everything, it was never really in the flow, especially financially. It just, there was always that trying to get ahead, do this. I don't want to have to go get a job. I want to just do this. Right. And there was a point in 2007 when I had a real, kind of smack in the face of what a real reality check. So I was trying to make it as a coach at the time, right? So I had, and I have a few clients, and I was chasing this income, like if I could just get there, and I was never getting there. And it was literally had this moment of it was at the gas station. Driving home from my family reunion in Western Massachusetts. And we're driving home, my husband and my two girls, to Rhode Island, where we live. And we stopped to get gas because we didn't have enough gas to get home. And it was one of those, so how many of you guys can relate to this? It wasn't to fill the tank. We didn't have enough money to fill the tank. Right? Like we've all had those moments. It was like, okay, what do we need to get home? And the girls, of course, because they were little, we're at a gas station and convenience store, right? So they're like, "Mommy, I'm hungry. I'm hungry. Can we get something? I'm so hungry. Can I get something?" I think. And I had to look at them and say no, like no, because we had to get gas, and that was like, I don't know, there was like $13 in our bank account, and there was nothing in my wallet. You know what I mean? It was one of those moments. And we got home, kids got fed, right? There was food at home, but what do you think the rest of that drive was like for me?
Oh God.
Right? I just, it was like, it took that to like kind of smack me out of denial that if I was actually going to succeed doing what I wanted to do, I had to learn how to sell it. Like nobody was going to come sell it for me. Right? Like it was like denial, really, like it's going to happen. Right? And so I wasn't at all comfortable with the idea of sales, made me sick to my stomach, but I was like, I got to do it. So I went and got a sales job, like a 100% commission only sales job. I was like, I got to learn this. And I might as well get paid for learning it. Right. And that was the start of a pretty, journey over a number of years, and that job. And then I went and got another sales job and learned kind of at another level. And along the way, I learned some things about how sales can be done that I loved, right? Of how it can help people and connect with people and be real and help people solve their problems. I also learned some things about how sales is sometimes taught and done that I don't like at all, and I don't do that, right?
Yeah.
And along the way, I developed my way of doing sales that I, usually call heart-centered, soulful sales, and got really good at it. At this point, I've probably sold well over $4 million worth of, services, a combination of my own and other people's, like wonderful stuff from one-to-one sales conversations. I figured out a couple of years ago that I've had over 10,000 sales conversations.
Jeez.
So I know what I'm talking about. I've made all the mistakes.
Thinking about it, 10,000 sales conversations.
And the most of them have been fabulous. I mean, it doesn't mean I made every sale, right? You shouldn't be making every sale because you don't always have what the person wants or needs, right? But I learned a lot over the years, and I developed my way of doing it that is what really works for people like us, for healers and heart-centered coaches. And that's what I help people with now.
If I can just interject, because you said something that's so important, and I think it would be so easy for people to miss it. I would have missed it. That when you're doing heart-centered work, the sales conversations are generally enjoyable.
They're fun. I've been laughing my butt off with people I've had where we were both crying because we got so connected, in the sales conversation. So sales conversations for me are they're as spiritual and connected and heart-centered and serving as my healing work.
Which it's taken me 30 whatever years to finally realize, like, that we're in our kind of work, it's not selling like you're trying to convince people of something. You're finding out what's going on with them and finding out if you have something to offer them, and then communicating in that in a way that they can get the visceral sense of whether it's right for them or not.
Exactly. And get that you care, right? It's that the old quote, people they don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care, right? And it's really all about that. And sometimes I have a sales conversation with someone, and at the end of the conversation, I'm not recommending that they hire me. I'm like, there's something else that would be better for them. So I'm going to recommend that, right? I don't want them as a client if I'm not the best solution for them. And it's nothing to do with convincing. It's kind of funny. I actually had someone who was talking with me about my healing work, I don't know, a year or so ago. And so she had some specific questions, and I just, I gave her my answers and this and that. And the particular thing she wanted help with, I hadn't ever helped anyone with that particular thing before, but as I explained and thing. And she didn't right then become a client. And then she asked to talk to me again. So I said, fine. And she said, I was really hoping you would convince me to do this. And I just went, oh, yeah, I don't do that.
No. Yeah.
Like, that's what was going on. No, yeah, I don't convince.
Sorry to disappoint you, but no.
That's not going to happen.
And just for the people listening who were like me, that sales is this, the devil's word. I'm not quite the way I thought of it. But close, but
yeah, gross, yucky, pushy, all that stuff, right?
And I know for me, part of what helped me was realizing there's people who, if it wasn't for sales conversations, I don't know what my life would have been like. If they hadn't been able to connect with me, find out where I was, where I wanted to go, what I needed, and to explain, if it was a fit, how what they were doing could help me with that. I mean, I can't imagine what my life would have been like without that. Yes. And they didn't feel like, they weren't sales jobs. They were human conversations,
Exactly. And it's just a type of human conversation. And when you're being a real human being, being yourself, opening yourself up to them, right? You're playing a role because there's a role you're supposed to be playing of the person who has some expertise, the person who can help them. So you're doing that, but you're being really you, filling that role. Does that make sense? Right? Because you can also have someone who you like them. Mm-hmm. Let me put it this way, because I think this helps people to kind of rejig their brain around sales. We've all had horrible sales experiences, right? We've all had where someone was just being a jerk. They were not listening. They lied to us, whatever, right? We've all had those. That's, not what we're talking about. If you think, anyone listening, you've also had some great experiences, right? Where someone they were so good. They were respectful of you. They cared about you. They took the time to they helped you figure out what it was that you needed, because you actually didn't even know what it was you needed. And they had the knowledge to ask those questions. They were an expert in their field, so they could help you. They educated you, and you might have walked in thinking you needed this, and that would have been the wrong thing for you. And they help you figure that out, right? And so you end up really taken care of. And that's the kind of sales I'm talking about. But you could also have something where they were really nice. They were cool. They cared about you, but they also didn't know their stuff. So that's not so great. Like, you liked them, but they sold you the wrong thing because they didn't know the. So we want to do both. We want to be that real human being and have the skills to ask the right questions, really help figure out what it is the person wants. And when you bring the two together, that's a salesperson you'll go back to every time, because you trust them and they're going to take care of you, and they know their stuff.
And something you mentioned before, the whole idea that you both may decide this isn't right for them. Yeah. And a friend of mine, I remember years ago, he got all kinds of referrals from a woman who they decided it wasn't really a good fit. Mm-hmm. But she kept telling people how great he was, who she thought it was a good fit for.
Right. Yeah, that happens, right? That does happen. Or sometimes with the referral, it's like they love your work and they refer people to you, but those people aren't really interested. Right? There's where, like, I want my husband to work with you. Husbands are not interested. So those ones are a little tricky sometimes.
And something, this might be, I don't know if it's off topic exactly, but I found for me, when I was opening up to more doing it, if I really thought they were a good fit and they decided against it, and I thought they were making a mistake, sometimes I would feel like I'd sort of failed them, somehow.
Well, I mean,
some of that's good because it got me
yes.
to think about, well, how do I communicate this better? But some of it was kind of like discouraging,
Yeah, I think
demotivating.
you might take it personally, right? And that's not going to be helpful. Or you
Yeah,
might take it as like, I was supposed to, or I should, or like I failed, and that's
yeah,
not helpful. But to look at it as how, if you genuinely feel like, oh, I wish, like there's times when I'm like, oh, I didn't go deep enough with that. Like I could have asked a little bit more,
yeah.
I could have asked, I could have asked their permission to go a little deeper, and I didn't, right?
Mm,
And that would have, whether they would have said a yes or no, that would have served them better. That kind of
mm.
looking back on the conversation is very useful. So.
Excellent. I had somebody recently that I really think something would have been so perfect for him. And the reason he was saying no, I think, was just unconscious resistance, which I just told him that and stuff, but he still was like a no. And I went, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's okay. Because
his life, his decisions,
It is. And we could be wrong. Like we can have an opinion that this would be the best thing for them, and maybe it's not. You've just right? So but yeah, it's all about just, being real and in the moment and being a real person with them. And people tell you know when someone's being real with you and when they're not.
Oh yeah.
So do
they. I love what you're saying so far. Let's focus this a bit on the people that want to make that transition to working with groups, or maybe they're already doing it, but they're not.
Yeah,
they're holding back or whatever,
Yeah, so I love that. So it's, I created a fair amount of success doing one-on-one, and the one-on-one is great. I actually did create a 6-figure energy healing practice just doing one-on-one sessions, which not a lot of energy healers can say, right? So it can be done, but it was a lot of work. Like, it was a lot of sessions. And when I decided to make the switch to, well, partly to this business where I'm not just doing healing sessions, but I'm helping healers and coaches,
right.
But also even with healing clients to switch to groups, it's just so all this stuff becomes available, right? There's so many things. So first of all, I want to say for healers in particular, a lot of people don't realize that what they do one-on-one, or at least a great deal of what they do one-on-one, they can do in a group. And it's easier than you think, right? And not that we'll get into that in great detail right here, just because people have all these different modalities, but most of what you do one-on-one, you can also do in a group one way or the other. And when you do that, there's, in some cases, I find it's even more powerful, and people report to me that it's even more powerful than some of the stuff. And I have an opinion about that. My opinion is that it has to do with the power of the group intention, right? Because everything we do comes down to intention. So I like to think of it this way. If I'm working on someone one-on-one, there's my intention and there's their intention. And then there's my team, right? So I have my guides and whatever, and my great Aunt Annie, who's apparently one of my guides. And all of that, right? And so do they have their team, right? So maybe there's, I don't know, 20 intelligences, 20, or whatever. Well, what if it's a group of 20 people and we're doing this group healing together, and they've all got their team. So now you're talking about this, and there's just this combined intention for healing and clearing, and you can feel it, right? It's very powerful. So I think in some cases, there are things that require one-on-one work, no question.
Yeah.
But there are also things that can be done at least as well, if not even more powerfully, in a group. That's been my experience.
If I can just, it was really, for years, I thought, well, the group work was just making it a less expensive option for people, more, I could have more people once, make it less expensive. And I remember the first time somebody said, well, group work can actually be better. It was like, and even though I'd experienced that lots of times, it hadn't sunk into my brain that, for a lot of things, it's better for the reasons that you said about the energy field, intention. And also somebody in the group might bring something up and you go like, oh my God, it's like, there's something that wasn't even on my radar, and going,
to even look for or check for or something. Absolutely. Right. Plus, when I do group work, a lot of times I like to have discussion about it, right? Like, so we'll like, maybe I'm going to tune in. I'm an intuitive person. I'm going to tune into what's there in the group, like to be cleared. And we'll talk, and I'll say like, okay, so, what's coming up for me right now is like a lot of stuff around self-sabotage. Okay. So who can relate to that? Tell me how that shows up in your life.
Yeah.
And then they'll share, people will share, and it's healing and kind of cathartic in itself to share in a group of people who are something like, this is how it shows up for me, and this is how it shows up for me. And we, a lot of times we'll do that, and then we do the clearing. And that community experience is also really powerful, right? It's like, I can tell them they're not alone, but when they hear, 20 other people sharing the same thing, they get that they're not alone.
Remember one of my mentors back in the 80s, and I was still struggling with being a businessman, didn't fit my image of myself. And there's a whole group of us, and like one guy was president of a company and stuff. And he goes, how many of you aren't comfortable thinking of yourself as a businesswoman or businessman? And half of us put up our hands, including some very, like the guy who's the president of a company, and I'm in a big company. And I'm going like, oh, okay, it's not just me.
It's not just
it's like
that is that experience. And then there's just the sense of community, the ability to share, you start to feel safer, you start to open up because you feel safer. It's very powerful. And then another good reason is what you brought up, that it is a lower cost option for people. So that's another thing for anyone who's struggling with. Healers and coaches often struggle with pricing and what they're going to charge for what they do. And I'm all about empowered pricing, and having pricing that you feel confident with. And most people, I think, are charging a lot less than they could, and all that stuff. And at the same time, sometimes you have clients who there's a real financial struggle for them. So to be able to give them, I'll just pull out some numbers, but instead of charging $100 per session one-on-one, if you're doing a group thing and it's $20 per session, but you have 20 people there, that's you getting, for the same amount of time, getting paid $400 instead of $100, right? And each person only paid 20, right? Yeah. And I'm not saying those are suggested things, I'm just doing the math, right? So it's, it gives you so many options. And I'll tell you one other thing I really like seeing. I experienced this myself, but I love seeing this in my clients as they move to start doing group work, is the confidence that starts to come out. There's so much wisdom that each of us has from all of our years of lived experience that starts to get tapped into more, I find, in the group thing, where just because, things will come into discussion and we have stuff to share, and people start to really step into their expertise and their wisdom more and show up as a leader. And that's really beautiful to see as well.
Fantastic. And I just want people to know, we'll talk about it later, but Anne has a program coming up very soon. And we'll go into the details in a bit, where you can really take this further. So I just want people to know, I'm going to get some valuable tips out of Anne right now. And she has a great deal of experience in 10,000 sales calls for starters on how to do this. And there's a lot to it, even for people that are experienced. But so somebody, let's say, who's starting out or they haven't done groups yet and they're thinking about it. Any initial first tips to help them?
So a few things, and we'll go into this in great detail in the workshop, which we'll get into detail about in a bit. But probably the one of the most important things is to identify who is, whatever it is going to offer, right? Whether you want to have some kind of like a membership where there's a monthly or twice monthly call and people come on, or you want to do a 5-week program, or you want to do a half-day workshop, or whatever it is that you want to do. You want to think about, who is this for? And I don't mean necessarily in like a super niche way, but like, who is it for? Like, what is it that you want to teach, and who would really benefit from that, and who would be interested in the results that it would give them, right? So you do want to take some time to think about it. Is it, moms dealing with anxiety? Is it spiritual entrepreneurs struggling with abundance issues? Is it, just,
Mhm.
and so you want to, really define that for yourself. And then when you start from there, the rest of it gets easier because you're trying to think. So it's really about you want to think the whole thing through from beginning to end,
Mhm.
from like, who is it for? What are they struggling with and what do they want? What of the things they're struggling with, what will this help them with?
Mhm.
How do I want to structure it? Then, like, for example, how long is it going to be? Is it going to be a workshop or this or that or the other thing? And then from that, you can have a description of it and you can have and come up with a name. That's often the hardest part, is coming up with a good name, right? But all of those things. And it's just, when you start with that core thing, who is it for? That has to be it just has to be the starting point. So that's the first thing I would say. Yeah.
So who is it for?
What are their problems? What are they struggling with? Right. And then what of the things that they would say are top of mind problems for them, what is your program going to help them with? Because your program is not necessarily going to help them with everything.
Right.
Right? And you have to just go through a process of identifying that, and it starts to become more and more clear. The other thing I would say is that it's more than, well, it can be just very simple. You're just going to do energy clearing. You can just do that, and that will be valuable to people. And it can also be quite a bit more than that, without it being complicated. Like, remember, I just mentioned, like, you have some discussion, right? That adds a huge amount of value. It's very easy, right? If you want to look at things that I find a lot of coaches to some degree, and certainly healers, a lot of times they're actually doing a lot more with their clients than just their sort of core modality or their core thing.
Right.
So maybe they also are very interested in nutrition and they're doing some of that, or they're really experts, super passionate about, knowledgeable about essential oils. And so they're adding that in, or flower remedies, or they're, they have maybe they do yoga, or their background is a PT or something. So they give some, physical thing, it's pretty common, and they're not really charging for those. Do you know what I mean? They're just kind of like what they do. And so one of the things that can be helpful is to look at what are all the things that you tend to do for your clients, and separate them out a little bit. And then you can have those separate things in the program, in the description, and it helps people see the value, right? Like I said, a lot of times I find healers just kind of discount a lot of the stuff that they're doing, instead of separating out. It's like, and this and this. Right? When you start to do that, you're like, wow, this is a really great program.
Oh, I love that. And I'll just add in, I know this is something you're very aware of. For people that are new, also think about who you want to work with.
Yes.
So back in the 80s, my mentors taught us this really great program to help people quit smoking. And I co-led a couple of them, and it worked really well. But I realized, like, I don't want to do this much.
Yeah, that's not what you want to teach. That's not what you want to do. Exactly.
I mean, it wasn't that I didn't like smokers. It was just the whole thing around. I thought that's because people are going, boy, you could make a huge business out of this. And I'm going, yeah, I could, but it's not what I want to do.
I'm not calling you. Yeah. No, and sometimes you'll create a program and then you run it a few times and you're like, yeah, that's actually not what I want to keep doing. And in some cases you might just stop it completely, but you got a lot of clarity from that, or you pivot and you switch it, right? And it's like, okay, it's actually the stuff I want to do is pretty much the same, but I actually want to do that with a different group of people. And so it just needs a little tweaking, right? That can happen as well.
It's funny now that you say that, like in the 80s when I was getting started, I was doing them through different venues, including like community ed programs, which depending on where you live, I mean, I met some incredible super high level people in community ed, came to community ed classes. And I deliberately taught just, 1 to 4 night classes on a whole bunch of different subjects, because I thought I really don't know which of these I'm going to like teaching. And it was so great because some of them I thought, I'm not sure I'm going to like this, and I loved them. And other ones I thought I'd love. So, that permission to experiment and be able to go, well, it worked for them. It's not what I want to continue doing. And to really be able to give yourself permission. I think so much what you're talking about is really giving people permission to learn, to experiment.
Yeah,
Use a
absolutely.
term, you have a pilot programs, which is all, I used to love that. Well, it's a pilot program. I'm charging less.
Yeah, that's what I teach people to do, and then we'll get into that. So it would probably be good to, let's talk a little bit about the workshop.
Yes.
So I am offering a workshop that's coming up. It's a 2-day workshop. It's kind of like 2 half days, Friday, February 17th and Friday, February 24th.
So a week. Yeah.
So with a week in between, so you have some time to like practice and do some stuff, which I think people find super helpful. So when the first time I offer, so I started just doing group energy healing. I started to just do it. I kind of did it on Facebook. Actually, one of the first things I did, it's kind of funny, was it's probably late March, early April of 2020. Do you remember late March, early April of 2020?
I do.
Remember, like what the hell is happening in the world, right?
Everything closed down about the day after my birthday. I had a birthday party and everything shut down.
So we're all like, what's happening? And I decided, I just was sort of moved to just go on Facebook, just on my personal page, right? Where I didn't really did business there. And to just offer some group energy healing. So it was kind of, I was scary. I was like, oh my God, everything I posted about it as like, I'm coming out of the energy healing closet.
Yeah.
A lot of you guys don't know. So, it's my Facebook profile. It's like, there's people I know from kindergarten, I haven't seen since high school. There's my cousin, the doctor. I'm like, I wonder what he's going to think about it. So really a lot of people did not know that they know me, but they didn't know that I do that. So I said, I'm going to try, I'm just feeling moved to do this. There's a lot of stuff, we're all kind of freaked out. I hope you like it. Right. And so then I just did a Facebook Live, and I just was like, whoever wants to come on, and I just was finding stuff and clearing it. And I did it probably half a dozen times. And then I was like, okay, that, does it. But it was really, people loved it. People, they were like, oh my God, I can feel it. Da, 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 da. So I'm trying to remember why I started that story. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I think I do remember now. Sorry. So I kind of did that. And then I started doing, I had a little group and I was doing it there. And then people just, especially healers, were like, how are you doing that? Like, I didn't know we could do that. Right. So they started getting interested. And so I just put it out there as like, hey, if I were to do a workshop on how to do the energy healing in a group, would anyone be interested? And a bunch of people said yes. So that's why I created this workshop. And when I first thought of it, I was like, this will be like a couple hours. Like, I just need to show them that it's actually easy to do it. Like the healing itself in the group, I just need to show them it's easy. But as soon as I started creating it, I was like, what's the point of me just showing them that you can do this if they can't then sell it and use it to build their business? What's the point? And it'll just be, for a lot of them, because they are allergic to sales and they need that help, it'll just be another thing they do that they can't do or aren't getting paid for. Right. So that's why, and then that's why it's a 2-day workshop. So there's about an hour where we're going to, so I should say this workshop is not only for energy healers, it's certainly for coaches and stuff too, but there's only about an hour where we're going to be like practicing and doing the healing work, or doing, if you're a coach, it could be something a little different. The whole rest of the time is, okay, now you can do it. How are we going to build your business with it? Right. Okay. So this 2-day workshop is soup to nuts, everything you need to create, promote, describe, get paid clients into your first beta, pilot program, or if you've done them before, your next beta program. So we're going to cover the technology you need. We're going to cover like what kinds of consent and disclaimers forms you should be using. We're going to talk about how you're going to deliver it. We're going to talk about, again, we're going to take you through the process of who is this for? What are they dealing? What's the promise of it? And I don't mean promise like a guarantee, but like what's it designed to give them, right?
Right.
Why would they do it? Creating what's the structure of it, a description, a name, a price, for the beta version. Then, like I said, and then how to get the word out there, how to actually have the conversations to have people sign up and say, yes, I want to do it. So remember, I'm a sales expert. I'm going to show you if there's a very simple way to have those conversations. Most people make it way more complicated than it is. I'm going to give you like a formula. This is how the conversation goes. Right. It's very simple. So by the time you leave, you'll have your program, all outlined. If you're going to record videos, your videos are not going to be recorded, right? But you'll know what they're going to be, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, and you don't, by the way, have to record any videos. I'm just saying, if you want that to be part of your program, but it's going to be all outlined. You'll know how to get people in it, and there's no reason why within 2 or 3 weeks from the workshop that you couldn't have people paying and starting your program. So that's what it's designed for, not just the technique, but how to offer it and get people into it.
Where were you decades ago? Actually, I'm happy to know you now, but yeah, and just for everybody, I think a lot of us, it sounds like a lot of work, or we resist it, or blah, blah, blah. If that's what's coming up for any of you, you should definitely take the program. And I've been very impressed for a long time with what Ann knows and how she communicates it and how she comes from her heart. And it's if you're going to be doing this kind of work, you need to start learning how to do it, or you end up in the gas station going, well, okay, do I give the kids candy or do I? I mean, I remember like, I have a penny jar. I can go get gas,
right?
Which is kind of humiliating, but
it's those days that things like that, they do change your life, right? That was a transformation for me. Life became like there was life before that moment and then life after that moment, because I had to get real with myself. Like, this isn't working. Right? And
like people say, if energy healing or coaching, if it's just a hobby, that's fine. If
but
you're
I want to make
it to help people. Yeah, I mean, to help as many people as you can, support yourself. Also, I remember years ago thinking, well, I have enough money to support myself. I'm thinking, my mom needed money. I couldn't even lend her any. It's like, it does not make me feel like a grown-up. You gotta think.
Yeah. Well, I in my 40s asking my mom for money. Yeah, I've been there too, right? And now very much on the other side of that. So
yeah. So I'm going to try to attend myself. I think it's going to be, I mean, I know I'll get value out of it, even though I've been doing groups for years. I'm sure there'll be a lot of things I'm going, oh, okay, that makes total sense now that I'm hearing it. I would encourage people, even if you've done a lot of groups, I'm sure there'll be a ton to learn. And so again, it's the 17th and 24th, is that right?
17th and 24th. We're going to go 11 to 5 Eastern, and with a break in between, and we'll have that week in between to kind of connect if you want to practice some of the the group stuff. There's also a Facebook group that's a private group that's only for people who have done this workshop. So everyone in that group has done the workshop at some point in the last couple of years. So that's also a place where you can continue to connect with people.
Oh, nice.
As well. So it's only for people who've done this particular workshop. So yeah.
For the part of my community that's in Europe, so 11 to 5, that would go to about 10 o'clock for them.
It'll go to 11, actually, if they're in Europe. It'll go to 10 if they're in the UK.
Yeah. So it's like
a bit late, but not crazy, not middle of the night.
Yeah.
It's Friday. Hey.
If you and Tony Robbins should be getting warmed up and they'd be there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'd love to have you guys join us. It's a great workshop. Art has the link for you guys to do there. Yep. And there's a promo code for $100 off. You'll see that on the page, and it would be great to see you all there.
And the promo code Do I need to put that in or?
No, it's on, when the link you give them will take them to the page, and the promo code's on the page, and they can just pop it in. Promo code is groups, just, I'll tell you that now. But it's also on the page where they go to
I
sign
have
up.
to come up with that name. Well, no, I really want to urge people. It's going to be super valuable. I'll be, once we're done, I'll go through and make sure the link's already there on the Facebook page, but I'll be able to edit and put them in the actual post. And some of you are on YouTube or LinkedIn. I'll put the very shortly put the links.
Great, yeah. Come sign up. We're gonna. It's that I didn't even get the name of it. The name of the workshop is Transform Your Business with Group Programs, and that is what I'm out to do. We're going to transform
your programs with group. I'm sorry, transform your business.
Transform your business with group programs. Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, a delight as always, and I'm looking forward to it, and I know it's going to be super valuable. And I know a lot of people in the energetic NLP community and others who are watching this will find it really valuable.
Awesome. All right. I look forward to seeing y'all there.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Ann.